Bringing us home today is LBT Innovations, ASX code LBT, with a market capitalisation of around $25 million. Presenting today is Brent Barnes, the CEO and Managing Director. LBT Innovations provides intelligent automation solutions to microbiology laboratories. Brent, please take it away.
Great. Thanks, Peter. Look, let's just jump straight into the first slide after the disclaimers. We haven't got a lot of time here. What I wanted to do is just to summarize from an investor's perspective, kind of what it is we do, just to kind of put a couple of bookends in a really simple way. So from a market perspective, our customers are pharmaceutical manufacturing customers. So think kind of AstraZeneca, contract drug manufacturing organizations, that's who we sell to. And the problem that we're trying to help them with is in the space of environmental monitoring. And this is a process that happens in every aseptic manufacturing kind of setting globally. And so when drugs are manufactured in a clean room, I think that's the kind of environment that we're kind of talking about. And from a solution perspective, well, we've got an imaging and an image analysis system. So we kind of take photos and we've got a product that moves things around. And what we aim to do there is to provide improved quality, traceability, and efficiency of parts of that workflow. So that gives you a bit of an idea just from a summary perspective of kind of the market we operate in and generally kind of what we do. And when you think about pharmaceutical products, it's from a biologic cell and gene therapy perspective, it's an industry that's definitely growing, super exciting, highly profitable from our customer perspective, and one where from an automation side of things, if there's anything that can be done to improve quality, reduce kind of any potential for mistakes through automation, really attractive from a customer perspective. And pleasingly, AstraZeneca have purchased 5 instruments. We announced that earlier this week, and that's on the back of selling a couple of instruments to some contract drug manufacturing organizations, Novacina and Thermo Fisher. So we're a commercial stage biotech company. The next slide, I'm just kind of pausing and I'll get into kind of the details of what we do, but I think it's worth highlighting this announcement that we only announced this week. AstraZeneca have been a cornerstone customer of ours for the last kind of 12 plus months. In fact, the photo that you can see on the slide here is AstraZeneca presenting on the APAS technology at a pharmaceutical conference earlier this year. They've gone through a process of evaluating the technology, testing that the technology works, and they've come to the conclusion that, it's really fit for purpose and have made it really clear that their intentions are to look to standardize on a technology that helps them in their environmental monitoring practices and workflow on a global basis. And so this is an initial order we expect, and they've identified a number of sites globally that they'll look to roll it out to under this kind of first initial order of 5 instruments. And we'll look to execute. So we'll deliver and we'll train and we'll embed over the coming 6 months. And so the majority of that kind of up to $4 million order will be received within that kind of time frame as well. And the reason why they're looking to do that is because they have high volumes of these culture plates that need to be reviewed. I'll talk about that in a moment. And so it's a very manual process and one that is really ripe for automation. Next slide then talks we're going to take a step back now and just talk about the market. So the aseptic manufacturing or our addressable markets, it's a big number, nearly $3 billion. And it's absolutely a really exciting growing market at the same time. But probably just to kind of relate it back to the big number that every kind of investor company will talk to is, well, how does it relate to our strategy? Well, our strategy is to really be laser focused on the larger pharmaceutical manufacturing companies by revenue. And an interesting data point there is that there's about 600 manufacturing sites globally. And so that's kind of where our target market is in the near term. Obviously, we'll get to the others in addition to that. But the reason we're doing that is because our customers are super sophisticated in the way that they consider automation, and they don't want to change manufacturing workflows very quickly. They want to do it in a very methodical way. They want to understand the technology, and they also ultimately want to do it for all of the right reasons. Next slide gives a bit of a view of kind of what the tech does specifically for the environment. So what you see there on the screen is a culture plate, and the little kind of circles on there is various microbial bacterial growth. And I think there is a fungal or a yeast growth there as well. And what happens is that these plates are put inside of a clean room, they're incubated, and they're read. And like I said before, this kind of environmental monitoring application is a mandatory part of aseptic manufacturing during the process of making drugs. And these plates are used to test and measure the hygiene or the cleanliness of the clean room during this kind of manufacturing process. Next slide talks about the problem. So that kind of gives you an idea. And there's another picture on the screen of what a culture plate looks like. And what we've done, and this isn't our study, but we've got a reference there, is that we know that the reviewing of growth, and I've given you a couple of examples, and I can guarantee if you were to show those plates to 5 microbiologists, you're probably going to get 4 or 5 different results. So we know like there's an inherent variability of reading these plates, and then you've got to manually type the results of those of the information into a laboratory information management system. So if you like, what's the problem we're trying to solve? Well, we're trying to solve a known variability in reading plates, and we're trying to do that in a way that improves the quality and the traceability and, of course, the efficiency of that process. So our solution, which is the next slide, is a automated plate assessment system, or APAS. And it's pretty simple in its operation. You kind of load up the instrument with the plates, you start a session, and then you walk away. And what the product essentially does is it takes a photo of the plate. We've trained an algorithm to interpret all of those different colonies, those microbial growth that you saw on the previous slides, and we'll do a colony count. So we'll count them automatically, and we'll identify them automatically. And so what we do there is that then provide a permanent record of that plate. So there's a digital image that's a permanent record that will be interfaced to the laboratory information management system. There'll be the results of what the algorithm has autonomously identified. Those results are digitally passed to the laboratory information management system. So you can see just there where we're improving the current quality of the process by a permanent record of the plate in terms of the image. We're improving the traceability by making sure we're digitally processing that to the laboratory information management system. And we're doing it about 3 times faster than the current standard process. So, pretty exciting from a technology perspective, and that's gone through a full validation cycle. And finally, the next slide maybe just kind of draws out again the example of this kind of culture plate workflow and the challenges of counting the colonies. And so the great thing about APAS is that it's going to look at the plate here. You can see there's 39 colonies. It's going to identify the same 39 colonies every single time you put that plate through. So, real advantages there just around improving the quality, traceability, and the efficiency of those results. And the reason all that matters is the next slide talks about kind of the implications of getting it wrong. So the manufacturing of pharmaceutical products to ensure that they're safe and effective for human use is obviously a highly regulated process. And the cost of getting it wrong can be significant. So probably in the worst case scenario, if there was an issue in your manufacturing process and you've got product already in the market, it would require a product recall to occur. That doesn't happen all the time, but if it does happen, it's a big costly event. I'd say the next implication is because it's a regulated process, our customers are audited by the regulators, by the US FDA, by the TGA, etc. And during those audits, if there's any observations that are made or non-compliances or non-conformances during that process, those are documented. From a US FDA perspective, it's called a 483. It's a written document that are made publicly available. So all your dirty laundry, if you like, is made available. And so, this kind of, the problem that we're trying to solve is one that can be super costly if you get it wrong. And that's why, we've got a super attractive product. And that's why we've kind of gone after this market with a really high reliable, fully functioning device at the moment. Next slide talks about, just kind of visualizes that environmental monitoring workflow. So on the far left, you've got those culture plates. The way that works is that go in a clean room, the plates are put inside of the clean room, and they just sit there for 4 hours. And you've got the atmosphere just kind of settling onto the plate. They're called a settle plate. After that 4 hours, it's put into an incubator, which is just like a fridge. It's incubated for 5 days. And then you've got you've actually got two microbiologists that read the plate. And what happens there is that they'll take the lid off, they'll look at what's growing. Any growth identified is super important. As small as it might be, you've got to identify anything that's growing, and you've got to key that information into the laboratory information management system. And so that result, the trending of all of the data, is really important. It all goes into the manufacturing records for the drugs that are released, that ultimately is part of other records that go in to ensure that the drugs released that's safe and effective into the market. So the next slide just kind of puts where APAS is. And so you can kind of see in the far right there, we don't touch any part of the workflow beforehand. And that's really valuable because the end-to-end workflow is a validated, highly regulated process. So our customers don't want massive changes to their workflow. And so it means that they use their existing plates, the culture media. They don't have to make any changes there. They use their existing infrastructure for the incubators that already exist. And they wheel in APAS and just replace the reading part of the workflow. And I explained that you kind of bulk load the instrument, you start a session and you walk away, and APAS will do the image analysis and the data transmission automatically, removing all of that manual work associated with manual culture plate reading. The revenue model in the next slide is a combination of an upfront CapEx with some reoccurring revenue. So the end user price for the instrument's 450,000 Australian dollars. So that's your upfront CapEx. The APAS app is the AI software and that's really the heart. All of our IP, all of the smarts of this instrument is in our imaging and image analysis chamber in the middle of the instrument. And so that's an annual software license of around $75,000. Then you've got service on top of that, and then there's some upfront implementation services. So all up, when you kind of think of the instrument and the contracts, the AstraZeneca announcement, we did it on a 7-year kind of contract. And again, most of it upfront with the instrument, but you've got this kind of reoccurring revenue on an ongoing basis. The final slide here just kind of summarizes where we're at and perhaps a little bit about our outlook. So F25 has really kicked off for us with a fantastic start, right? So 5 sales to AstraZeneca is really great. We're going to install an instrument to Novacina here in the near term. And so, we've got a lot of work ahead of us. We've also started or will start an evaluation with 2 other large pharmaceutical customers. So kind of their top 10 biggest pharma customers, at least by revenue. So we've got a bit of a pipeline here that's evidenced through this great AstraZeneca announcement that we made early this week. So look, our focus is all about delivery and then expanding our pipeline during this fiscal year. Thanks, Peter.
Brent, thank you. We do have a few questions that have come through. The first is, what is the potential market size for APAS and who are the competitors?
Yeah, so I put the big top level number there was about 2.8 billion in terms of total addressable market. We think that there's, in the order of 14,000 to 15,000 kind of facilities that could use our technology. So it's a big market. We've got a major, I guess the major competitor we have is manual process. So by far and away, 98% of all labs today are manually looking at culture plates. So that's our biggest competitor. In terms of an automation perspective, there is another group, Rapid Microbiosystems, who automate the incubation and the reading together. And so they've got an install base of about 150 instruments. And I guess that the challenge with them and why we take a different approach is that you need to use their proprietary media. They combine the incubator and the reader in one. So that validation process is more stringent, and it's double the price. So, kind of the instrument $600,000 versus our US versus our $300,000 US dollars. So, we've got a competitor. We take a very different view to it to simplify the value to simplify the implementation, which is really providing the same value to our customer.
Brent, you guys have been busy. This week, you announced the signing of a sale and service contract with AstraZeneca. Can you paint a bit more color about this announcement and what this means for LBT as a whole?
Yeah, so AZ, like I mentioned, have been a cornerstone customer. The announcement we made this week was for 5 instruments. So what we'll do is to install those 5 instruments across a number of their phase 1 facilities. So we expect the next 6 months to be busy delivering and performing the training and helping them embed the 5 instruments into multiple locations across their network. We also expect that's going to be a huge industry validation for us. So we've now got AstraZeneca already promoting our technology, and that they're now moving from that kind of promotion evaluation phase into kind of full-scale implementation. So they've said, you know what, it's fit for purpose. Now let's go ahead. Let's raise an initial order for 5. Let's get that 5 installed, implemented. Let's do that over the next 6 months. Then let's kind of, have a look at that embedding part, and then look to see where they will go from there. So I guess for us, it's a great case study or validation point of what I call a land and expand strategy, where you've got these key large customers where you do a validation at one location, and then you've got multiple other opportunities across their network, which is what they want to do. It's a highly standardized process, and so the benefit of scale really sits well with our technology and our strategy.
It's exciting times for LBT. You do have various partnerships. Obviously, AstraZeneca is one of them. How have these aided success for LBT? And are there any more partnerships in the pipeline?
AZ has been an important one, because I guess one thing, while they've now bought 5 instruments, they're also really early adopters. So in January of last year, they were finding that they had a problem, and they wanted to find a technology solution. And they found us, and we all found each other. And they actually have now paid us about $1.2 million to help accelerate the R&D over the last kind of 15 months. So the R&D is now done, right? We finished that in March. But that partnership, that cornerstone partnership, was super important to help us accelerate as a partner, as well as fund the company through that. In terms of additional partnerships, look, we're always on the lookout. We've got some discussions happening with other strategics, but really our focus, to be honest, is all about commercial execution. We are laser focused on pharmaceutical companies that are aligned to look for automation to solve their problems, have identified us, and expanding that pipeline. So it's about delivering, and it's about expanding over this next 12 months.
And just looking at the balance sheet, are you guys well funded to continue operations in the short to medium term?
Yeah, Peter, we absolutely are. So we raised capital at the end of the last year, essentially just kind of really restructured our balance sheet. So this order really kind of helps give that kind of confirmation and certainty on our roadmap. And we've got some R&D tax incentives to come in, about $0.8 million in the nearer term here. And look, we see ourselves from a cash. We're not looking to raise capital at the moment. We have a runway, definitely, kind of entering to the back end of 2025, but calendar year. But I'd say, look, our internal plans here is to push through to cash flow positive, and that's kind of really what we're laser focused on doing.
So thanks, Brent. Just the last question. You've touched on this a little bit, but what do the next 12 months look like for LBT?
Yeah, so I have kind of touched on. I think just from a simplistic perspective, we've got a really busy kind of remainder of this year. So for the first half of fiscal year F25, it's about shipping, installing 5 instruments for AstraZeneca. We've also got 2 other large big pharma companies, so I think kind of similar to AZ. We've got an evaluation with each of those starting in this current quarter. So we've got to ship, install, make sure we get those protocols set up. So really the next 6 months is about really delivering on the sales that we've been able to capture. In addition to that, it's about building the pipeline out and translating, those 2 large pharma customers going through an evaluation, converting that into a sale, and then that kind of land and expand thesis to say, okay, well, you've kind of gone through it in one location. Your opportunity within your network is 3, 4, 5, 10, whatever it might be, and let's look to help expand, to streamline, and to standardize the platform across your organization. So, really simply, let's deliver on the commercial opportunity that we've been able to deliver already, and then let's look to expand that pipeline with a really clear goal to make it super clear to break through into cash flow positive. That's our absolute goal.
Thank you, Brent. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.